All right. So we've collected our moon mosaic data. It's now time to make the mosaic. And so I'm picking a data set that has some of the typical problems. And so you can see how I work through that. So first, let's go to Skynet. I'm going to go to optical observing. And I've decided to do this data set right here. Prompt 5, moon data. So I'm going to open it up. First thing you want to check is to make sure all the observations were taken back to back to back to back. If there were a gap in your observations, you're going to have problems aligning because over time, you're looking through different amounts of atmosphere. The telescope picks up small rotations, and that will mess up the aligning. So I'm going to look here, 0048, 49, 50, 51, 52, 3, 4, 5, 6. It all seems to be progressing without any significant gaps. Yep, and then I'm going to go to page 2. This was a 75 observation, 5 by 5 red, 5 by 5 green, 5 by 5 blue. So 75 total. Continues, 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 no major gaps. Okay, that looks good. Another thing you want to check, were the flats, darks, and biases taken around the same time as the data? This data was taken on January 17th. The biases, darks, and flats were taken 21st. They're a little bit delayed. That could mess up the observations a little bit. If they're greatly delayed, it could mess up the observations to the point that you can't do color. You'll still be able to piece together a mosaic, and you can turn the color off and have a nice black and white image of the moon. If you want color, you normally need your calibration observations to be close in time. So we're going to try this one out. Let me go back to page 1 and scroll down and check the calibration observations here. All taken on the 20th, about 3 days after. We'll give it a go. Okay. So I've checked the observation. I'm going to go here to Afterglow and load it in. I'm going to open. I'm going to go to Skynet. If I took it myself, it will be here under my user observations. If someone else in my group took it, I'll go here into group, find the group, navigate to that particular user's username, go in their directory and find the observation. But I took this one myself, so I can just go to user observations. I've been observing for a very long time through Skynet, so I have more observations than anyone, and it takes a long time to load them. Once you get here, you can click on last modified, so you can sort by it. Click on it again to reverse the order. Okay, so these are my recent observations. Let's limit it to observations called moon. Here we go. And it's probably this one. Let me check. Ending in 488. Ending in 488. So I'm going to go here. And go to reduced. So these, the calibration, the darks, the biases, the flats, they've been applied. Without those calibration observations, you won't be able to piece together a good mosaic with good colors. Those calibrators are important for getting the colors right. And I'm going to select them all. There should be 75 of them. Here's 0 running up through 74, so 75 total. I'm going to open them. This is prompt 5, so these are 1K by 1K images, kind of on the small side. They should load relatively quickly. And here we see the progress bar moving. If you're doing prompt 6, those are 2K by 2K. And so they'll take 4 times as long to load, essentially. Though you'll probably get the best images with prompt 6. More pixels, more overlap between the tiles, smaller pixels, you get a better image, but be prepared to press some buttons and then go do something else and come back. Particularly the alignment can take a good fraction of an hour. Here, it will go faster, which is why I'm using this one for the demo. Okay, they've loaded in. Click on the first one here. Now, ideally, you're doing this around full moon. This particular example that I'm showing you is before first quarter. It's a bit of a crescent. The principles are all the same, though. Okay. And, you know, we have 75 of these. I can load in the next one if I want, but no need to load them all in. First thing we're going to do is, after they're open, we're going to clean them. That's this one right here, cosmetic correction. I'm going to click on it. I want to clean all of the images. Now, what are we cleaning them for? Let me load this up. We built our own cleaning algorithm. It's pretty nice, actually. Astronomical cameras, quite good, quite sensitive, but not all the pixels are perfect. You have some that are called hot pixels that always read high, some that are cold pixels, always read low. It's hard to find the cold pixels, but the hot pixels like here and here and here and here, they show up. Sometimes you have a partial column or a full column that's messed up. So bad pixels, bad columns. But when we run our algorithm, you end up with this. It finds them because they're too small. The sources are blurred over a certain scale. These things are much smaller, much narrower. We can use that information to find them and replace them with averages of surrounding values, carefully done. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to correct these. With the exception of planets, the cosmetic correction does not do a good job on planets. We'll skip it there, but everything else, we apply it. So I'm going to select all of the images. We can leave these settings the same. I'm going to submit. This really doesn't take too long. Things do take a long time. You can always go up to this tab here, Jobs, and see how they're progressing. Okay, complete. And it's updating the images. And particularly with lunar images, it's hard to see the difference. But it's still a good thing to do. You don't want these hot pixels, bad columns. They can mess up the alignment, which is what we're going to do next. Okay, go down a tab to the aligner. Again, we're going to select all the files, and we're going to go into mosaic mode. Just in this module with the moon, we're going to make a mosaic. I don't think anywhere else in the MW curriculum do we make mosaics. So we go into mosaic mode. You want to turn off rotation, scale, and skew. It's too much freedom. As it's trying to piece these tiles together, if you let them rotate tiles, stretch, scale tiles, or skew them, it's too much freedom, and you'll end up with weird solutions. Something we call Frankenmoons. Might still get a Frankenmoon. We'll see. The mode features. We're going to use the features on the lunar surface. For different types of aligning throughout this course, we'll use different things. For planets, we'll use Source's manual. For deeper astronomical fields, they'll have a coordinate system on it based on the background stars called a world coordinate system. We'll use that. But here, we're going to use the features of the moon. So click on features. They're different algorithms. We're going to use AKs. I think it's a good compromise choice. And the default for AKs is 0.5. If all images were taken simultaneously, 0.5 would usually work. But since these are taken sequentially, there's a bit of a time difference from the beginning to the end. And again, conditions change, atmospheric transparency changes, and all sorts of things change. So a better starting point for these types of images is 0.4. And it's only a guess. If it's too high, we'll get too many alignments, and it will find weird ways to connect the tiles, producing a Frankenmoon. If we're too low, it doesn't find enough ways to align it, and you get kind of partial mosaics, or you may get most of the mosaic but missing a few pieces. We have to hit the sweet spot. 0.4 is a good start, but you'll probably have to do it twice to get it right. Everything else you should be able to leave the same. If you ever do mess with them, you can put them back by hitting the restore defaults. I'm going to submit. It'll get up to 33% pretty quickly, but then it's going to be a slow march. This will probably take, well, we just hit 34. Waiting. Just hit 35. So this is going to take a bit of time. Again, if you're doing prompt 6 2K by 2Ks, it can take a very long time, particularly if you're aligning 75 images. So I'm going to pause the video and resume once we get to the end. All right, I've resumed the recording. It just hit 100, and it's been about 12 minutes. That wasn't too bad. Though I should point out, if many people are doing this simultaneously, it can take longer. Okay, and it's loading in this image. I'm currently on the second image in the list. And what it's done, now that it's aligned it, it figured out how the tiles fit together. Maybe it got it right, maybe it got it wrong. We had to guess at that ratio threshold of 0.4, but it's come up with some alignment, and it's now reloading the image, and it's moved the square to where it belongs in the big image. These are bigger files. They take longer to load into the viewer, so we'll have to be patient here. Now, some of the images, it was not able to align, and it's marked that here. Image 25, which I think is the first image here. Let's slide over. Yep, 25. And a bunch of the others. And it couldn't align them because we didn't image, it wasn't a full moon. It was just a crescent moon. But we tiled the whole region. A lot of those squares are completely black. Let's click on this first square. Okay, that one, I don't know why it didn't fit it in. Let's try a different one here, 29. Well, that one, it couldn't match because this was the dark part of the moon. There are no features to latch onto. Anyway, I clearly was able to organize some of them. So let's see if it got it right, or if we need to go back and adjust the AK's parameter. So we're going to go to the next bit, which is stacking. Okay. Now, we have 3 filters, H alpha for red, O3 for green, and U band for blue. And we're going to stack each one separately. So first, let's filter our list on H alpha. I put the underscores there just to make sure I don't get anything else. I'm going to come over here and select all. Make sure I don't have anything in here from some prior job that I don't want, or a prior stacking attempt that I might not want. Now, the key thing here is the first thing on the list has to be one that aligned. We saw that H alpha 0025 did not align. So if we start with that, it will only try to align images of that size. The first thing on the list has to be one that aligned. This one did not align. This one did. So I'm going to start with 26. Any others that are not the same shape, it's expanded the size of all of the ones it could align to the same supersize with each little tile where it's supposed to be based on the feature alignment. It will align those. Any that's the wrong size, it won't align. But anything that's the same size as the first thing marked, it will try to align. Okay. Down here, you want to turn on the equalizations. Each of these were taken under slightly different atmospheric conditions. And so by equalizing, it's basically going to multiply each by a number. It's going to add a number to each, trying to get rid of the seams. If you don't do the equalization, you'll see the seams between the tiles. The equalization's intended to reduce that. Okay. This all looks good. I'm going to submit. These don't take as long to do, so I don't think I'm going to pause the recording. If I remember correctly, they start out slow but get faster, so we'll see. While it's doing it, we can set up the next one, which will be the O3 images. Let's check out the first one. The first one did align. See how it has the larger image here? It's going to bring it in piece by piece. See, it's speeding up. 25, 58, 75. It's almost done. You get some errors for the pieces that were not the right size, the ones that did not align. That's okay. Not sure why this is taking so long to load, but I'm just going to go ahead with the stacking job. I'm going to select all of them. That first one is one that did align. So I'll submit. While it's doing that, let's take a look at our stack. The image will come back with the word stack in it, unless your internet drops out and you come back, it comes back with the word file in it. So by filtering on the word stack or file, you can find it quickly. I'm going to load it in while it's processing the second one. And if this looks fine, we'll keep going. If not, we have to go back and make some adjustments. And already it looks like a Frankenmoon. Very sad. But this can happen. We'll let the whole thing load in here. Okay, so that AK's ratio threshold parameter was too high. Found all sorts of weird solutions. Oh, it actually finished. It should also look like a Frankenmoon. Let's get rid of these two. And I'm going to go back to the aligner, clear out the filter, have all of our observations again, select them all, and I'm going to lower the ratio threshold. Let's try 0.3. And I'm going to submit. Now it's going to take a little bit longer to get to 33%. It's cropping out all that white space around those images, getting ready to try again. Okay, now it's going to realign. It should take another 12-ish minutes, so I'm going to pause the video. Okay, it's at 98%. Took a little bit longer than I would thought this time. Okay. All right, so we're aligned. It says it aligned the first one this time. Let's see. I'll click on the first one. This is a bigger frame than before. See where that first bit lands. Looks like it's going to land up in this corner. You can kind of see it here. That looks healthy to me. Okay, good. Let's go back to stacking. Again, we stack each filter separately. So I'm going to filter on underscore H alpha underscore because that's part of the name. So now only the H alpha files are listed. Going to select all of them. The first one, 25, did align, so I'll just leave it in place, make sure I don't have anything weird. I did erase those stacks from before, so they're not in the list. And we're going to start with all the equalizations on. We'll see if we have any strange color residuals, in which case we may have to come back and modify this step. But let's submit. While it's processing, we'll get the O3s ready. So I filtered on underscore O3 underscore. These are our green images. They're ready to go. And I'll start them as soon as this one's done. Again, remember the stacking jobs start slow, but they end quickly. It's picking up speed. Okay, the H alpha combination's done. I'm gonna start the O3 combination. Let's filter on the word stack. Take a look at our H alpha stack. Hopefully no Frankenmoons this time. Now, if we lowered that AK's ratio threshold too much, we might end up missing pieces. If you go too high, you get Frankenmoons, too many connections. If you go too low, you get partial connections. Maybe a few pieces will align and a few other pieces will align, and you run a piece and other parts of it are missing. But it looks like it was successful. These pieces aren't going to line because it's just dark, but anything that had moon in it lined successfully. That's very encouraging. It's running the O3s right now, so let's get the underscore U ones queued up here. We're waiting for the O3 stack to finish. Here we go. Okay, now I'm running the U-band stack. Come back over here, filter on stack. Let's take a look at the O3 stack while the U-band stack is running. The U-band is done, bringing that in as well. Here it's loading. Seems to be loading faster. Okay, great. Let's color this one, right click. Gonna color it blue. This one, bring it back up here. Right click, color it green. The H alpha, gonna color it red. Gonna select all three, click on the triple dots, group them. Stop filtering on the word stack. Slide down, load the composite. Zoom to fit. Okay, that looks pretty good. It's not a monochromatic image, a black and white grayscale image. There are subtle colors, and this would probably be fine, but I'm kind of picky. Looking at this, I see another subtle defect that we can correct. See how it's kind of pinkish on this side, greenish on this side? It's probably because the flats, and maybe the darks and the biases too, were taken a few days separated from when the data was taken on sky. So there is something you can do to dampen this out, because we're about to accentuate the colors, trying to bring the colors out of the maria and the craters. And if you do have this kind of gradual gradient of color, unnatural color, it will be accentuated too. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to restack them. I'll set it up here. I'm not going to realign them. Don't need to do that. They're all aligned, but I'm going to restack them, and I'm going to just turn off the multiplicative equalization. These equalizations help to hide the seams. If we look at this, we don't really see any seams. It's pretty much seamless. But by getting rid of the multiplicative equalization, it helps to cut down on these color gradients, though some seams may come back. I'm going to give it a try. We'll compare the two and see which we prefer. I'm going to keep the additive in there with equalization order 0. I'll explain more about that in a bit. But let's do this one more time. H alpha is running. And I'm going to do all three. But tell you what, I'll pause the video and resume it once I've redone all three. I'm just going to stack them the same as before, H alpha, and then O3, and then U. Okay, I just finished the U-band stack. Let's load that in. This one we will color blue. There's the O3, coloring it green. Here's the H alpha, coloring it red, grouping it. We'll see if it's any better. And if it is, we'll make sure we didn't pick up any seams. So here's the new one with the -001. Here's the original. I'll put the original back up, kind of green on this side and lacking in green on this side. So great in red and blue, and hence purple. But we turned off the multiplicative equalization, did it again. Let's see if it's any better. Yeah, it is. Let's get them the same size there. See how that deadened the color on the green side? Yep, and this side as well. So much better. Most of the color variation is now the Maria versus craters and things like that. And that's really what we want. So it's worth the additional time to get rid of that gradient. Again, the flats, darks, and biases are just a few days different from the data that was taken that night, and so you start to pick up colors. Here's an extreme case. This was prompt 2, and its flats, biases, and darks are about a week out of date. And so that's really bad. I can, of course, still take an image like this and get rid of the colors, go fully monochromatic, and you still have a nice image. But we're really interested in pulling out colors. Okay, so now that we have this image, actually this one right here is the color-free version. Yep, color-free. Let's go up to display settings. We're not done yet. I mean, it looks pretty spectacular. There's a lot of great detail. I mean, that's just really great. But we can make it even better. So the first thing you want to do is come over here, and one of the 3 layers, the red, the green, or the blue, will be selected. It doesn't really matter which one for this. Go over here to Color Composite Tools, and we're going to link all layers percentile, the first one. So this is nice. I now only have to control the brightness and contrast in one layer, and it will adjust the others for me automatically. The first thing I want to do, you see the bright spots? It's washed out. And this is because of the stretch mode. We're in linear stretch mode. The brightest areas have been washed out. There's a stretch mode that we can use that doesn't wash out the bright areas. It does a good job showing you both the bright and the dark areas. We have all sorts of different stretch modes, but the fancy one is midtone. So I'm going to switch to midtone, and we just have to be a little patient here. There are a lot of pixels in the browser. Each action is going to take a moment. After you switch, go to the default preset. And see, this is better. We're no longer washing out the craters. There's a lot of detail in there. Okay. Now, a couple things to set. In midtone, we have the background level and we have the midtone level. Let's start with the midtone level. The higher we make this, the dimmer things get. I'll up it from the default of 97.5 to 99, just to show you. This is going in the wrong direction. See, everything got dimmer? Let's go the other way. Let's try 95. You don't want it too dark. It's pretty good. Let's try 90. That to me is getting a little bright over here. I guess I'm going to go with 92.5. Okay, good compromise. The next thing you want to do is bring up the background level. Because when we stretch the colors, there's actually, you can't see it here, but there's a little bit of faint brightness around the edge. And so you want to bring the background level up as high as you can without darkening the moon. Let's try 50. This will take the faintest 50% of the pixels and make them black. Okay, no change. Let's try 60. I saw a little bit of change. I'll put it at 55. Oops, I hit 5. There's 55. Get a chance to click in. Okay. Now, you didn't see much of a difference here, but sometimes that makes a huge difference. Let me bring up an image, show you an example here. This is prompt 6 data. Prompt 6 has a bigger chip, 2K by 2K. And so you get this iris effect that I mentioned in a previous video. The chip is big, so when the shutter opens, you get more light on the middle, and then it closes. So you get more light in the middle than the edges. And when you piece that together, you can get seams. If we look here, you can see those seams. See the seams? This is with all the equalization turned on. It's supposed to hide the seams. It's just that iris effect is making it too tough. You see the boundaries here. So what you can do, you should always start as we did it, but let me go back to the stacker. This additive equalization, if you're dealing with an iris effect, instead of a 0, you can up it to 1. You shouldn't need this with small chips, but if you have a big chip like prompt 6, you may want to try 1. And let me show you what that does. Again, here are the seams with order 0. Down here is with order 1. There's still some seams, but it's a lot better. See this strong seam here? It's mostly gone. So by increasing the order, you can hide the seams a little bit better. The compromise is it screws up the background. See how the background around the moon here is really messed up, particularly on the side with the terminator. And if you're doing a quarter moon or even a crescent moon, it can be really bad. So bad that you probably want to stay with order 0, even on the bigger chip. But the closer you are to full moon, it's not that bad, and you can hide it by upping the background level. This image right here is the exact same as this image. I just upped the background level to something around 50%. Okay. All right, but I'm happy with this one here. I'll go back to display settings. We set the background nicely, the midtone, and so now we're going to go down here to export image as JPEG and spit it out. And load it up in any picture viewer. All different computers, operating systems have different picture viewers. You may want to orient it as the moon is actually oriented. Yeah, that's the correct orientation. Maybe I'll rotate it back a little bit and crop it. Something like that. Okay. So get the orientation, matching that in the sky, something like that or like that. I had to do a flip to get the orientation matching. Just Google or Wikipedia a picture of the moon and match up the orientation of the craters. Now, the final bit here is I'm going to adjust the saturation. Some of these also have something called clarity or sharpness, and you can try to sharpen the craters. Feel free to play with that, but don't overdo it. If you overdo it, it will have an artificial, over-processed look. I'm going to do the one called saturation. This is color saturation. So as I increase it here, it accentuates the colors. See how the blues really come out? Though again, I feel I overdid it. It's natural. Here's 0. And you can kind of see the difference between the blues, which is titanium mixed in with the rock, and the lava flows that has iron, it's browner. And so we can saturate and bring that out. But if you go too far, it has kind of an artificial look, and you may bring out some colors in other places. So I'm going to go with like 50%. It's up to you. But I pulled out the colors a little bit. It'd be even better on a full moon. When you have a full moon, pulling out those colors will really help you do the lunar mineralogy. Let me save it. There's my picture of the moon. Pretty happy with it. All right, I'm gonna stop this video.